Hello YouTube, this is Spaceman Productions, and today I'm going to be starting my new series, Spaceman Reviews, a series in which I recap and review films. And in this video, I'll be reviewing the 1925 film Battleship Potemkin? Potemkin? A pumpkin? I don't know. I'm just going to pronounce it as Potemkin because it sounds the best. But anyways, Battleship Potemkin is a silent Soviet film released in 1925 about a real event that occurred in 1905 when the crew of the Russian Battleship Potemkin rebelled against its officers. So you can already tell that this film is super old, but that's okay because it's still great. So now that we've covered all that stuff, we can actually start the review. So the film starts with these two sailors whose names are Vakulinchuk and Matyushenko. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those right. They're Russian names. I don't speak Russia, so, yeah, and they're just standing around the Potemkin when they start talking about how they and the ship's crew should help in the revolution that was going on at the time, you know, all that for the workers stuff, which is actually a sentiment that I wholeheartedly agree with, but that's besides the point. Later that morning, the crew are talking about the absolute trash quality of the meat that they're supposed to eat, because it has a ton of worms on it, and one of them says that even a dog wouldn't eat it, which is an absolute freaking lie, because if dogs will eat that horrible looking, smelling, and probably tasting Killwitz crap, then they'll surely eat meat crawling with worms. But anyways, they get the ship's doctor to inspect it, and he just goes, "Nah, it's good. It's just some maggots that can be power washed, that's all," which goes to show that he's a complete freaking liar who just wants to see everyone croak. The crew still complains, and honestly, rightfully so. But the doctor says it's edible and ends at that, and even the cook realizes that the meat sucks, so the crew just decides to eat bread and canned food instead. It then cuts to a scene where a guy is washing the dishes, and he sees a plate that reads, "Give us this day our daily bread," and he throws it on the ground, and it breaks. So now it's a bit later, and all of the crew and officers are on the deck, and the officers say that whoever didn't eat the meat is going to be executed. So they cover some of the sailors with tarp, and a priest comes to give them their last rites. But then just as the leading officer orders the other officers to open fire, Vakulinchuk pleads for them not to shoot. So they all put down their rifles, like sensible people with hearts, and all the sailors decided to overthrow the ship. But then Vakulinchuk gets shot and killed, which is pretty grave, both literally and figuratively. So the crew sails to the shore of the city Odessa, where they put Vakulinchuk's dead body in a tent with a sign that says, "For a spoonful of borscht," which was the food that was being made with the rotten meat from earlier. The citizens start to see this, and they become inspired and start to want to rebel as well. But some government douchebag says that they should instead, kill all of the Jews. So they beat the bricks out of him because he's a complete waste of life who deserves it anyways. The crew then leaves back to sea, where some of the citizens get on their own boats and give the crew supplies and moral support and stuff like that, all that good stuff. And then all the others gather towards the bottom of the Odessa steps, which is basically just long stairwell thing. I don't know. But then, all of a sudden, Russian military members gather at the top of the steps with freaking massive bayonets, so you know things aren't going to end well for the completely unarmed men, women, and children at the bottom. They start to advance and open fire, and a mother is shot, and her baby goes flying down the stairs in its carriage, and a woman gets her eye blown out, yeah. But the most brutal part of the sequence definitely has to be when a different mother and her child are running down the steps, when a soldier literally shoots the child. And the mother doesn't even realize for a few seconds that he's not there anymore, but then she sees him and picks him up, and goes up to the soldiers and begs for mercy, but they kill her and the kid anyways. The crew sees this, and so they decide to blow up a building where some Tsarist military people are, which I don't ever remember the movie saying anything about there being Tsarists in there, but oh well. They then see a squadron of Russian ships on the horizon, so they start to take aim and prepare for battle, but the ships don't open fire, and it turns out that they support the revolution, and they fly the red flag, and yay! Happy ending! Woo! Overall, I did actually think that this movie was super amazing. I did kind of find it hard to understand at times, seeing as this is actually honestly the first silent film that I've ever seen in its entirety. I know, shame on you, Nico, grr, whatever. I actually had to look at the Wikipedia article just to reaffirm the stuff I wrote down while I was watching the movie, which I honestly think is pretty funny. The story was actually really engaging, and there was definitely a sense of emotion and even some inspiration and empowerment sprinkled throughout it. And I definitely have to say that the Odessa Step sequence is one of, if not the most incredible sequences I have ever seen in any film. A lot of it due to the cinematography. Like, seriously, this is the first Sergei Eisenstein film that I've ever watched, and I can already tell that this man is a complete friggin' master at montage. And also because of the pure dramatic effect and weight it has on the rest of the film from there on. And it actually is pretty important to the history of Soviet film, just like everyone says it is. Now for the rating I give it. Usually most reviewers use a 4-star system, and I'm going to use the exact same 4-star system, but I'm not going to call it the 4-star system. I'm not going to be using stars. It's the same, like, 8 levels, like there's half star, 1 star, so on and so forth. But instead, I use like these little cartoon faces I'm going to show on screen with a description to accompany them. And it goes like this. Why the hell was this even made? This movie is absolute garbage. This movie sucks. This movie is mediocre. This movie is pretty alright. I really like this movie. Absolute masterpiece. And this is literally one of the most amazing things ever put to film ever. And I would say that this film is honestly a solid, absolute masterpiece. And I highly recommend, and as long as you're not triggered by violence, I highly recommend that you watch it. And I recommend it even more if you're interested in the history of film like I am. The next movie that I'm going to be reviewing is Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film, The Shining, because, you know, it's October, it's spooky month, Halloween, why not review a horror film? But, yeah, that's all for the first episode of Spaceman Reviews. I hope you liked it. If you want to recommend any films that I review for Spaceman Reviews, then just, like, leave some suggestions in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.